SCLD and YU would like to acknowledge many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories where York University campuses are located, which precede the establishment of York University. Our podcast is produced and recorded on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Takaranto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabeg Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. Hey Lions, welcome to Student Conversations, Stories, and Lessons, the very first podcast hosted by your leadership and equity team at SCLD, where we explore the journeys of students navigated the complexities of leadership, personal and professional growth. We are your hosts, Sakina Hassan Ali and
Janet Yacobi.
And this series is all about diving deep into the real stories behind the student experience. Stories that inspire, challenge, and empower us to grow. In each episode, we will sit down with students from diverse backgrounds to discuss the challenges they have faced, the lessons they have learned, and how they have become leaders that they are today.
Whether you are just starting in your academic journey, in the midst of it, or looking ahead to what is next, this podcast is your space to gain insights, find inspiration, and connect with the shared experiences of others. So, without further ado, welcome to our very first episode, Steps for Success, Being Comfortable with Being Uncomfortable. Here we are joined by Clifton Grant, an incoming fourth-year law and society student and a mature student who has truly mastered the art of stepping outside his comfort zone. Clifton will share his unique perspective on embracing discomfort as a pathway to growth, both in his academic journey and beyond. So grab your headphones, settle in, and get ready for a conversation that might just change the way you think about your own journey.
Clifton, pleasure to have you on today. How are you feeling?
It's a pleasure to be here. It's not very often in life you get to be the first guest of a brand new venture. Podcasts are near and dear to my heart. I listen to them personally. I've been a host of them professionally, also on campus. So it is great to be in this environment, in this space. And thank you for having me as your guest.
We're
No,
so
definitely.
glad to
We're really
hear.
happy. Fun fact, I have known Clifton since my second year. I took a course with him. Shout out to Professor Jessica Bramo.
Shout
She's
out, yes.
amazing.
Yes, phenomenal.
Yeah,
Yes.
love her.
Clifton, just jumping right into our podcast topic for today. Our topic is centering around the topic of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Now, I know you have a lot of experience in that, stories you've shared with us, and we just really want to be able to tell the audience and our listeners how they can learn to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's kind of our goal for today. But yeah, what does that concept mean to you?
It's a very intriguing concept because in a university environment, first and foremost, especially as a mature student, when you decide to come back to school, there's a myriad of reasons. But and I've talked to a lot of mature students, but most of us are trying to improve your life. So you start with that foundation. Okay, how am I going to improve my life? And if I choose this pathway, I know that I am now entering a pathway that I am not the majority of. I'm going to be in the minority of. And what a lot of my friends tell me is that they're fearful of going to school with their children and people who are much younger than they are. So the first and foremost thing is whenever you decide to do anything is you always have to keep your objective in mind. What is my objective here? And if improving your life is your objective or getting another job or finally getting that degree or proving something to yourself or your children or your community, that has to always be on your mindset. And I'm very much into like storyboarding and visual stimulation.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
right away, I I created a 5-year plan for myself.
Nice.
Manifestation.
Right.
Nice.
And I've always tried to work that 5-year plan.
Mhm.
And within that 5-year plan, it changes and life changes. But the main objective doesn't really change. So the pathway to the plan might change a little bit. And some of the barriers and challenges might change a
Mhm.
little bit. But that's my first tip to everybody is whatever the objective, circle that. I put that in red.
Yeah.
Put that on your fridge. Put that on your bedroom. Put that wherever you, in your car, wherever
Phone
it is.
wallpaper.
Phone wallpaper. Tell your friends. Tell people that you trust with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, is even again before the get into uncomfortable part is surround yourself with people who are supporting you. And you're going to have people who are not supporting you that you care about. But you'll find people, whether it's on campus or off campus, that support you, that you really are going to have to lean on and make sure that they are people who are your cheerleaders, as I like to call it.
Mm.
And so every success that you
Mhm.
have, you tell them about it. And then they're constantly in your corner. And now when you come to all those uncomfortable positions or situations,
Yeah.
you're leaning on those two things. You're leaning on your main objective
Mhm.
and you're leaning on the people that are supporting you. And if you do that, then when you come against the barrier of being the oldest person in your class, or you
Mhm.
come against the barrier of not being able to comprehend the material that's in front of you, you come against the barrier of I have all these outside challenges in my life that I'm dealing with that are making me feel uncomfortable. You come against the barrier of financial challenges, right? So most people go from earning a salary of some sort to now, as I like to call us, we're all starving students, right?
It's an understatement.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. We can relate to that. So yeah, so it's really amount of you have the barriers
Mhm.
or the discomfort and then tapping into your resources. And one more thing before we go on.
Yeah.
Most important, and I tell people this all the time. Number one thing is you have to believe in yourself. You
Mm.
have to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
If you don't believe in yourself, then no one else will believe in no one else will believe in you, and that is very, very important. Always keep that self-belief.
You know, there's one thing that comes to mind when you say you got to believe in yourself. There's actually this concept. It was called voluntary discomfort, where you're voluntarily saying, I am going to go into that uncomfortable situation while acknowledging that is room for growth. That is room for, for me to embrace this discomfort. That willingness to put yourself in these uncomfortable situations is something where that belief in yourself is so essential to be able to do that. You have to be able to pull through, because sometimes all you really have is that belief in yourself that's gonna let you to reach the success that you're gonna want to chase after.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I always say that because people will tell you, what are you doing? Or you're crazy, or you should be doing something else.
Yeah.
And you don't want those
Mhm.
little self-doubt
Yeah,
things
like
to,
those
No.
seeds
cre-
of self-doubt
exactly
to be
creep
planted.
into your mind. So
And that's
that's
where
why you go to believe in yourself. Go ahead.
that's where you just said the environment you're around, the people you're around. That's where it's so important, because obviously what you're being fed in your mind, and the kind of conversations and the perspectives you're hearing, and the way people speak about themselves, right? If you're someone who doesn't believe, if you don't believe in yourself and you're around people who don't believe in themselves, then automatically your mindset's not going to be open to voluntary discomfort. You're going to
Exactly.
be kind of secluded and closed-minded about what your opportunities are, or how far you can go in your success and milestones.
Another key component
Yeah.
that I always draw on to, and when I mentor students, I always tell them this, is what are your alternatives? So if you look at the alternatives, usually it's not something that's very attractive. That's why you're
Mhm.
here. So is the alternative for me to go get another job that I was not happy with in the beginning to start with? Is the alternative to give up on my dreams? Is the alternative always to live with regret that I didn't achieve this? So, I always say also know your objectives, but also know your alternatives. Because
Just-
when you know your alternatives, your objectives
Yeah.
look that much brighter to you.
yeah.
Yeah, and just like touching upon this concept of voluntary discomfort, it's really interesting because, like, anytime certain little challenges that I've put myself through, it really does like aid in shifting your mindset in a positive direction, because for the most part, a lot of us, we view discomfort as a bad thing, as like, we like as human beings, we always want to
Yes,
be in
exactly.
a comfortable
Exactly.
situation and be
Exactly.
in our comfort zone. But anytime that I've gone through situations or experiences that I've like actually I made the choice of putting, because there's a difference of being shoved into a situation where it's like, oh, I have to deal with this because I have to, but then there's also the concept of putting yourself into a uncomfortable situation. It builds that resilience. And the good thing is that you have control over the factors and variables in those experiences, and it really does like shift your mindset of viewing discomfort and uncomfortable situations as an opportunity to grow and like develop yourself at like
Mm-hmm.
like that character development. And that's what, like, another thing I wanted to ask you is that through the obstacles and adversities and the discomforts that you have faced throughout your university journey, like we'd love to hear if you can share like what those have been and like how those experiences have aided in your character development. Because one thing for sure with me is I am not the same person that I was when I started off
Oh, oh
university.
my goodness.
Complete
Oh,
180.
oh, I love that. Yes, and you made a very, you made a lot of great points and give us a lot of valuable context. Um, and a quote I always remember that someone told me when I started, again, one of my cheerleaders, and they said to me, "Successful people do things to become successful, but unsuccessful people don't." And I always remember that if I'm going to be successful, there are things I'm going to have to do. And so one thing was right away. I remember just a very quick story. I
Hmm.
remember seeing somebody that I knew from outside of York. Um, First year through the pandemic, one of our professors allowed us to come into class. Anyway, connected with somebody, and then I heard that person's friend come and ask them, "Is that your father?" And I remember
My
feeling
goodness.
disheartened. Right?
My
So here I am trying to
goodness.
be young and hip. I have the knapsack, wearing jeans.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Knapsack.
So I'll never forget that. So, but again, I did not take that to heart.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said to myself, okay, it is up to me
Mm.
to engage with the younger people.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So I could easily, it is so easy, and you guys know this as fellow university students, it is so easy to sit in the corner, just listen to the lecture,
Mm-hmm.
go home, do your notes or whatever,
Yeah.
and then do the exam and and not
Not
e- and not
engage.
engage with the rest of the class
Yeah.
or with everybody else, either with the professor or whatever,
Yeah.
and almost sort of just hide in the woodwork, as I like to
Self
call it.
isolate,
Yes,
really,
exactly.
right?
I
Yeah.
like I like call it hiding in the woodwork, and I realized quickly that that's not me, my
Mm.
personality, and that's not going to
Yeah.
lead to any success,
And that's not
Yeah.
the
right?
university experience. You're missing out a
Yeah,
lot if you're gonna hide.
exactly,
And
exactly.
I know I listen, viewers. I know it's uncomfortable to get out there and have that conversation,
Yeah.
with especially coming in as a first year student and you're just coming in and you're trying to make friends or just off the bat talk to someone and ask for their notes or
Yes,
like
yes,
have those little conversations with them. It can be tough, but it's just about breaking that down and just saying it's as simple as talking to a human being,
yes,
right?
exactly,
Oh yeah.
exactly. And and believe it or not, this happens on the administration side too. I remember. Okay, so to make a long story short, I applied to York a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was going having my first university experience, um, York was one of my options. So it came down to York and another school, and I chose the other school, and I didn't come to York. So anyway, it's ironic to me all these years later I'm at York. So anyway, what I didn't realize at the time is that York had assigned me the same student number that it had back then.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
I didn't know that.
Wow.
Yeah. So now, as you guys know, every now and then for courses or whatever, you have to give your student number.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I submitted my student number, and the administration sent it back to me. Remember, this administration sent it back to me. Oh, your student number is incorrect. We need your new student number. So then I submitted again, and then I got the message again that your student number is incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a picture of the student number with my face on it.
Receipts. You gotta get the receipts.
Exactly. And I sent it into the administration, and then the apologies came. And so I went into the registrar's office and I asked, and they said probably what happened. They're assuming that the person that was recording your file or
Uh-huh.
working your file was not used to these student numbers from back in the day,
Oh my
right?
god.
So most people are like
They
two
pulled out,
something,
yeah, they
right?
pulled out the one
Yeah,
from
like
before.
the
A
218.
random
Yes,
four.
exactly. And I'm a 9.
Oh my
So,
God,
right?
it's a
Yeah,
9.
I'm a 9. So they probably had never seen that,
Yeah.
and they thought I was, because they do get the typos,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
right, and they just figured it was a typo. that I had put the 9 instead of the 2.
Sending your face is
That
crazy.
must have been embarrassing on
But
their
yeah,
end.
could you imagine the reaction? I wish I was there to see the reaction, right? And this is someone who's working in the administration, the registrar's office. So all those things. If I wasn't strong-willed, if I didn't have my objective, if I didn't have my cheerleaders, could really dishearten my journey that I don't belong in
You
this
could have
space.
given up more easily.
This is all
but
first
you
year.
didn't.
Yeah, this is all first year, right? That I don't belong in this space, right? So these
The
are
imposter syndrome.
yeah, the imposter syndrome. So I always, again, I'm constantly visualizing what my future is going to be like. I'm looking at my boards. I'm talking to people. I'm around people who are inspiring me, and I'm always keeping the main objective in my life. And I think that's always really one of the most important things.
Yeah.
And then just quickly, a friend of mine gave me some great advice. They said,
Yeah.
okay, I did all right, pretty good the first year. And then they said, well, if you want to go to law school, which is my objective, you need to get involved at New York. So I'm like, I do? So I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah. They said,
It's
"You
not just about the grades.
Well, I didn't know that, right? I just thought, oh, they'll say, oh, he's here, you get involved. And they say you have to get involved. So now I have to join clubs. Now I have to mentor. Now I have to volunteer, right? And again, you're going out of your comfort zone because you're going with
Definitely.
people who are, a lot of times you're the only mature student.
And it comes back down to I'm doing a full circle about how we were just talking in the beginning about how surrounding yourself with the right people, and that brings you back to your objective. And I guess that ultimately just takes away that fear of being uncomfortable because you realize everybody's in the same boat. We're all new to something, and it's just about the minute you expose yourself to getting into this new circle. That part's uncomfortable, but the moment folks recognize that, you're doing something outside your comfort zone, they're actually more than willing to help. There's a lot of
Yeah,
support out
Yeah.
there.
Especially here at York.
Yeah.
I find not only professors, TAs, learning skills, your
Oh, yeah.
friends.
There's a good
mentors.
support
There's
system
a
if
great
you
support
look for
system
it.
here. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's really the applicable. You have to then again go outside your comfort
Yeah.
zone. A lot of people aren't comfortable with asking for help. That's
Yeah.
there's a term I use that a lot of students have in this environment is that they suffer in silence.
Yeah.
So, right? And
Yeah.
we've met people like that. And then sometimes it's too late by the time, they finally speak up. And so a lot of times if I see people just talking to them, I'll make suggestions to them. But just getting back to your earlier point, because you made a very good point, Sakina. The number one challenge, I'm sure that the two of you would agree, the number one challenge in the university environment is time management.
Oh yeah.
Number one.
Oh,
Balancing-
procrastination hits hard.
Yeah. Well, that's all part of time management, right?
Yeah.
But balancing your life
Yeah.
is the number one challenge. And where a lot of the discomfort comes in is now when you look at your schedule and you look at what is due.
You're
and-
anxious.
exactly. And what is
Yeah.
on the horizon, right?
Yeah.
So, that is one of the discomfort parts. And one of the things, I hope people get out of this podcast is that is okay for that to cause discomfort in your life. It's now, what are you going to do about that?
Yeah. What are the next steps?
Yeah, what are the next steps? Because that is cause anxiety, discomfort, trepidation, a lot of those things. But that is probably the number one challenge for most university students.
Yeah.
And you really have to be proactive with that, I have found. So
Yeah.
most professors and TAs or whoever's marking your work are very, very, they're very much in your corner to be supportive
Yeah.
for your success.
If you reach
Oh, yeah.
out.
If you reach out,
Mhm.
yes.
If-
but you
if you
can't
reach
reach out
out.
the night before it's due.
Oh yeah.
Right?
No,
So-
you gotta
right,
give it
exactly,
you
exactly.
gotta
Yeah.
give it a week, 2
Yes,
weeks.
exactly.
Pro tip: go to the office hours.
Exactly, exactly. They
Yeah.
love office hours. One professor always makes me laugh. He goes, most of the time during my office hours, I'm just doing a song and dance. I mean, they're all
No,
by
I feel
myself.
so bad because
I mean, they're all
They're
by
just
myself.
chilling,
Yeah,
though.
exactly.
there's so many
Yeah.
amazing people. Like I cannot complain about well, I can, but I won't. I'm just kidding. No, I've honestly got in contact and, I've like developed such great relationships and rapport with a lot of my professors and TAs. And they're just so like fruitful individuals,
Yeah.
even though at first it was a little bit daunting sometimes, like dealing, like it's a new environment, it's new people, and especially, and I think this is something that we can all relate to, that, in high school, we're told like, oh, when you're in university, it's like, survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
It's, you're all on your own. No one's going to help you. And, I don't know. I found that to be one of the most incorrect pieces of advice, because if anything, the the people that I've met here, the professors, the TAs, the support system here, it's a much more supporting system and kinder people
Yes.
than in high school,
Yeah.
with all
I,
due
I
respect.
would agree 100%.
And for me personally, like it's part of my personality. I really love getting to know people and like getting to know, especially professors, as like, I don't know. I remember coming into university and thinking like, oh, like I don't want to treat you as like a means to an end. I'm like, you're an end in yourself. Like you're a human being, and
Yes.
they're really amazing people. So, so sort of tying it back to, kind of being comfortable and like sort of getting out of your comfort zone. For those of you who are a little bit shy or hesitant on approaching professors and TAs for for support or any sort of accommodations, they're really good people once you, like, if you just make that one little step, and like that one little step ends up like being, it just has an amazing ripple effect of, there's that one person that can end up like changing the trajectory of your whole university experience. One thing I wanted to ask you, Clifton, is when it comes down to like, have you found, would you agree that the most uncomfortable experiences have been the most fruitful for you?
Without a doubt. And just go back to your earlier point. They're vital. The professors and TAs, if you want to be successful in this environment, not just academically within the university, but outside to create opportunities for you, you have to have a relationship with the TAs and professors. I always say they have to know your name.
Oh
If
yeah.
they see you, make sure that they know who you are. And remember, some of our professors and TAs are teaching 500 people, so
Oh
they're not
yeah.
going to know 500 names.
Yeah.
But make sure they know your name. Just to get back to Janet's question, yes, I would say. So, whenever I always look at life and university as a mountain. So whenever you're able to climb the mountain and look down at the vast world that we live in, or as I like to say, the great outdoors. I just sort of visualize that in my head and see that you're at the top of the mountain, or at least the next stage of the mountain. There's no better feeling. So, first of all, no student, in my case, who has not been in school for 20 years, can sit in their living room when I was thinking about this and say, I'm going to do well successfully. There's no student who could say that. It's been 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And
It's like that, like you get that deficit
yeah.
of the morale.
So
Yeah.
so you can think you're intelligent. You can think that you have intellect, but how do you know in this sort of environment you're going to be successful?
Mm-hmm.
So I will say, I was so nervous writing that first major paper. Oh, it was nerve wracking. I remember it was like 20 pages. Yeah, it was a 20
This
page.
is a first year class?
Yes, but the final. Yeah.
Heavy, though.
Yeah. So
Heavy.
yeah, exactly. It was a 20 pages, lots of research, and I was going back and forth with the TA, having people proofread it, and I remember going to the writing center, and I cannot remember his name. I don't know if he's still here. It was an older professor, and when he said to me, "This is brilliant," I cannot tell you how I felt. Like I had tears in my eyes.
Yeah.
Aw.
That's when I knew I belonged. That's when I knew. And this is a stranger.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And there was so much uncomfortableness writing.
Yeah.
Like, again, remember, like, as we all know here, there's a certain form you have to have in a university environment to write. It's not me writing little text messages with emojis to my friends, right? It's not.
Oh, yeah,
it's not using slang, right?
Yeah.
There's,
You gotta
right?
learn
Yeah,
language
exactly. It's not the
here.
hamburger method that we've.
Oh, God.
That's
one?
flashbacks right now.
Yeah,
Flashbacks.
exactly.
With
So
me.
it's an ongoing process, the writing, right? Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, it's ongoing, and there's different levels to it. And now I'm going into fourth year. You're going to third year. You're going to fourth year. So right, and then hopefully there's law school writing. So I know that it's constant, but that challenge at the end of the first year when I went to the writing center, and he said that to me, and of course I had stuff to work on, but he just enjoyed reading it, and it was
Well, that's
formatted
incredible, yeah.
right enough for me to proceed. So sometimes it's the strangest people that give you the best motivation.
Oh yeah, those random
Yeah.
strangers
Yes,
that you might not
exactly.
see again.
Yeah.
But such an untapped resource. The writing center,
It
I've
is,
used it a
yes,
couple of times.
yes.
There's in person, there's online.
Yes.
Amazing people.
Yes.
And I did not even know about it until my second year. So
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm law and society, so I've talked to a lot of people, but in law and society, it's a writing faculty,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
As opposed to maybe engineering or
Yeah.
kinesiology,
Yeah.
right? Where it's more maybe practical. So ours is more theory based, and you have to be able to write.
But with the writing center, you'd suggest, especially for law and society students,
Oh
is
yes,
that where
for
you're
sure.
getting at?
Any
Okay.
social science,
Yes,
humanities.
exactly. Humanities,
Yeah.
exactly.
Anywhere where you gotta write.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then it's going to help you later on if you do post secondary, masters, or law school, med school, whatever. It will help you for sure.
Yeah. And this is where we truly implore students to really, like, I feel like another thing that really helps with gaining that fruitfulness from uncomfortable situations, and like you mentioned this earlier, Clifton, is having that objective, like that, like what is at the end of that road. It's going back to, what purpose are you serving? What's the meaning behind what you're doing? And I find that when there is a how can I put this, like a soulful meaning behind what you're doing,
Yeah.
it ends up you end up like you want to be in those uncomfortable situations
Yes.
because it serves that greater purpose.
It does.
It's a
it does.
calling. It's a calling.
It's a
It
calling.
does.
Yeah.
And one of the other byproducts that have come through my journey, which I did not expect, is inspiring others. Like you don't go to university. Like again, I'm sitting on my couch 4 years ago thinking, how do I improve my life? Okay, this is the pathway I've chosen. You're not looking, oh, then I can inspire other people to do this, right? So, especially for mature students, when they see other mature students, especially outside of York, really enjoying the process,
Yeah.
growing. Like people have told me that, again, I like what you said earlier, I'm totally a different person than I was 4 years ago. And that step closer to my goals, it's very impactful because there's a lot of people in society who are unhappy in their lives and would like to change their lives.
Yeah.
And that's why this podcast is great for people to listen. Well, how do they do that? Well, they're going to have to get used to being uncomfortable, right? And embracing that
Yeah.
and realizing what your objectives are,
Exactly.
right? And sometimes you might have to go to school with your children. Just say hi.
Whatever it takes.
Just say hi to them as you pass them in the hallway, okay?
And they'll be like, Mom, Dad.
Exactly. Don't embarrass me.
I'm with my friends.
I think honestly, it's like it's all about perspective though. Like some
Yes.
people could look at it as, oh my God, like why is your parent here? And then those are honestly the people you don't want to be around. Okay,
Yes,
they're
yes.
judging you for growing, like
Yes.
And then there's the people who are like, wow, that's incredible. Like I had seen someone in my second year class. Well, this was a first year course though, but I took this course called Justice for Children, and I see a mom with 3 kids. And like little young kids, one of them being a baby, and she'd come into tutorial classes with the kids, and like the kids were like learning too. It was incredible,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
like that environment, especially with the TA we had. They were able to engage with the discussions, but it was incredible to see like a mom doing that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
even I met like a 60-year-old lady who
Yep.
was in one of my courses
Yep.
studying law and morality.
Shout
go.
out
And
to
like,
all the
yeah,
mature
that's
students.
incredible. Like
Yes.
I'm laughing out of like that's incredible nervousness, you know? Like if anything, like you are inspiring me and
Yes.
you
Oh,
are
yeah.
doing incredible. That's so honestly, like you being a mature student, Clifton, that's incredible. That's
Thank you. And
Yeah.
I just want to since we're doing shout outs,
Yeah.
shout out to student engagement who has the reels of mature students a day in the life of. Not only because
I think
not only because I have one of them is me, but I've also watched other people's, and what you see other people go through to be students.
Yeah.
Like some people are getting up at 4:00 in the morning,
Yeah. The
Right?
commute is
And-
real.
right, to commute
Yeah.
and also study,
Mhm.
right? Then get their kids off to school, then come to school, then come home, make dinners, and the reels are like a minute, right?
Yeah.
So a day
Oh,
in the
yeah.
life of the reels. So shout out to student engagement for doing that. And here's another part of being uncomfortable or overcoming discomfort is find stories that inspire you. One of the stories that inspired me, believe it or not, came from Dr. Phil.
Wow, what a
yeah,
source.
But not a therapy session. Dr. Phil talked about his own personal story.
Oh.
And his own personal story is from his dad. When Dr. Phil was a young man, his parents went through a divorce, and his dad then had 2 sons. His dad, with 2 teenage boys, decides, I'm going back to school.
Wow.
Wow.
They struggled for many years. His dad eventually becomes a PhD psychiatrist,
Wow.
which then what? Motivates Dr. Phil to do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without
Yeah.
his dad doing that, there's no Dr. Phil, right?
Yeah.
And the world is not is a lesser place, we could say, right?
Everyone inspires everyone.
Yeah.
For sure.
So his
Yeah.
dad inspired him. Without that, we would never have known Dr. Phil. How great is that story?
Never
Yeah.
undermine the impact you make as an individual. I find it really sad when
Yes.
people think, oh, I don't make a difference,
There
or
you go.
there are like miscellaneous people. No, everyone has a part to play. And just like, that professor at the writing center for you, like that's like the most randomest person in
Yes,
your life.
exactly.
But look at the impact that it made. It gave you that boost of confidence for you to be like, hey, you know what? I can do it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes, exactly.
First of all, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. This is the first ever podcast from SCLD, and there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But more than that, there was a lot of soul that was put into this this whole series. We really hope that you guys are able to gain something from this, and you can inspire others in your journey called life. And just to give you guys a little bit of a teaser for our next episode is going to be on patience, leadership, and student success, where we will be talking about how patience is imperative to your personal and academic success, and also the tools that you can gain to identify and apply when managing your triggers during impatient times. But yeah, we want to thank you, and
Thank you, Clifton.
thank you,
My
for
pleasure.
Clifton.
joining us. It was incredible to have you.
Thank you. And I just want to shout out to all fellow Yorkies. And remember, most importantly, let's be good to each other, but be good. Sorry, let's be good to each other, but also be good to yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mic drop.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.